Enough. Queen had to put her foot down to dismiss Harry and Meghan Markle's titles. A royal expert claims the Queen had to put her foot down against Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's titles after they announced they were stepping down as senior royals. Mr. Richard Fitzwilliam says on OK Magazine that in response to the bluffing demands of the Sussexes after they resigned from their high-ranking royal roles, typically taking advantage of the titles to gain illicit profits, the Queen has had to make the decision worthy of a monarch, which is to ban all titles with her grandson Harry and his notorious wife Meghan Markle. An angry insider described numerous demands. How dare they make any demands on the Queen? That shows their arrogance and a misplaced sense of entitlement very clearly. If they wanted something, they should have been begging, not demanding from the Queen of this country. They've shown themselves up as the biggest beggars the royal family has seen. And why would they think that the British taxpayers would pay for their security when they left the country and were no longer carrying out royal duties, deluded and entitled? If they had stepped down and went on to live a private and normal life as they claimed they wanted, there would be no need for security. Instead, they are on a quest for world domination as global leaders and influencers, exploiting their ducal titles and anyone and any fashionable cause that can benefit them. It is this and their malignant determination to punish their families for imagined slights bordering on paranoia that has turned the British public against them. In reality, by remaining calm and dignified in the face of their petty grievances and insults, and issuing that single public statement proclaimed loud and clear that the Queen and the palace condemn all their titles and will not engage in a public slanging match, period. And the beauty of that one, clear public announcement, and the refusal to speak out since effectively and completely reversed the tables. Those two who believe that their Oprah Winfrey so-called interview would give them huge media attraction, appearing to be victims when almost immediately their lives are all debunked. They have quite rightly been seen to be the attackers against a Queen and royal family who deserve no blame whatsoever for their self-entitled petty resentments. That is why the Markles' popularity has taken a nosedive, whilst that of the royal family has exponentially soared. The only winners in a full-on media-led battle between the royal family and the Markles would only benefit the Markles, which they would gleefully use to manipulate further claims of victimhood. I, for one, don't want to see our Queen lower herself to their level, and she never will. That doesn't for 1 second mean that she's allowing personal feelings for a grandson to sway any decisions she might or might not take. For just as short of 70 years, the Queen has put the country and the monarchy at the forefront of all her decisions. And when pushes come to shove, Harry, as well as anyone else in the family, will find themselves in second place. She said a resounding no every single demand and expectation those two have made when they announced that they were leaving, and it's just worth mentioning that the threat of striking their titles is the one thing that's left to hold over them. Another source revealed that Prince Philip was still alive in 2020 when the Sussexes' demands, and he was in poor health, which would have been a concern for the Queen. They did have that final year together at Windsor, but it cannot have been easy for the Queen watching her husband's health deteriorate. Have friends who've been that route, and while it's almost a relief when death does come, there is no more suffering. There's still a devastating sense of loss. The last thing the Queen and Prince Philip needed during that final year was the Sussexes playing up. Unfortunately, Harry and Meghan had their own agenda and obviously had neither concern nor compassion for their grandparents. Her Majesty the Queen was worried about her life partner who was gravely ill when the despicable duo trashed the British royal family on Oprah Winfrey. They continue to harass a 95-year-old lady, which in itself is disgusting. Anyone who thinks otherwise is the pathetic one. Also, according to OK Magazine, Harry assured Markle his father would one day be king and he would always have security. But then they didn't have security. They were asked to think this through before they made an announcement, but they didn't pause at all, but did what she wanted as usual. They fought to keep the HRH, the titles, the security, and want to have a christening in a palace, but went on TV and lied and just said hypocritical things to any cost to upstage his brother. And she just wants money and fame. As for security, funny how they were told this by the Queen, and yet they said they were cut off financially by his father, so he had to pay for it himself. So he knew right from the start that he would have to pay for his own security, but he tried to fleece his father and tried to make Charles look like the villain. Their greed is unbelievable, and their lies are even worse. They eloped to Vancouver in October 2019, loitered about until March 2020, whereby we, the British taxpayer, had to pay half of their ginormous security costs, with the Canadian government paying the other half. They should be asked to repay that cost, as they carried no royal duties in that 6-month period. To me, they look and act like passive-aggressive delinquents, sniffing out their next loads of money opportunity, whether that entails throwing pensioners under the bus or not. But they still use their HRH titles. Didn't say that to Oprah, did she? She didn't mention that when she fled to Canada, that they owed the British taxpayer £2.4 million. She didn't mention that the Queen had removed all their rights and privileges. But she did mention that someone had asked in conversation whether Archie might have a different type of look. She did not mention that she on more than one occasion has described herself, and on the South African tour she only bothered with those different than her. And the other person to meet Archie was Desmond Tutu. And she calls our royal family awful names. However, royal expert Julia San doesn't believe that their titles have been erased. She explains that the problem is that removing the HRH is nothing. That decision is in the gift of the Parliament, not the Queen. She can only make a request to get the ball rolling, I believe. But let's face it, for Parliament to remove an HRH is a very big and complicated thing, and will only be considered if the holder has done something extremely serious, which might potentially endanger the security of the country or similar. There's nothing I'd rather see than those two permanently jettisoned out of our royal family and country, but Parliament isn't going to strike off those HRHs merely on the basis of them hurling infantile petty grievances and puerile, baseless lies against our monarchy, which have actually resulted in them doing more damage to themselves to the royal family. It's my belief that the most effective and punishing way of dealing with those two, which would be to send a massive message to the worldwide public and media, would be to completely ignore their existence by the royal family. No invites to any ceremony in this country whatsoever. No acknowledgement of a single one of their requests, demands more like, to involve participation in a public or private communications at all. They've spared no media coverage nor effort in repeatedly claiming that they want to be rid of our royal family and our country. Give them exactly that.